Hi, how's it going? Alan Sides back one more time, and this is a question from Hal Craig. He asked if I have a favorite EQ that's plug-in. If I don't, could I expand upon my general approach to using EQ, either on the console or in the box? And here's my thoughts on that. EQ-wise, obviously I'm a fan of analog EQ, but I use a lot of EQ in the box. Now, the hardest thing for me to get in digital EQ is the extreme high frequency information. If I want like a very silky 15K, 12K, 16K, most of the digital EQs are kind of harsh or buzzy sounding. I can get quite good broadband shells, and the Basie EQ works great. It's great for cutting. My problem is really how do I get that silky high frequency sizzle that I like. And the only plugin that I found that really does it for me is Universal Audio has an EQP1 Pultec plugin, and the 16K on that is about as good as anything I've heard. The only thing I got to comment is that still in the digital domain, if you boost too much of any one thing, it becomes kind of buzzy and a little bit harsh sounding. Like an analog EQ, if I had like an API 550A and I boost +6 at a 12K or 15K shelf, it sounds good. But if I start boosting too much in the digital domain, I hear it. I notice it as an artifact rather than being just a natural extension of what I'm boosting. So I really like this Pultec EQ. If I'm careful with an add a couple dB, 3 dB, whatever I add, I can get a lot of air on vocals, acoustic guitars, drums, even if I put it in an overall mix without being buzzy or harsh. And so that's my favorite EQ for extreme high frequency of the EQs I've tried. And I've listened to a lot of EQs. Believe it or not, I have no problem with the standard Pro Tools EQ, depending on what you're using it for. I like most of the broadband shells. A lot of times if I'm, say, clearing up a vocal, I might say maybe I'm doing a 1 dB rise, 3K broadband shelf. And if I'm being careful, 1.5 dB broadband shelf, I don't really hear it, it sounds fine. And maybe to get that same clarity, I'm doing a -1 at a 400 hertz shelf or 200 hertz shelf, just trying to get a little more clarity in the vocal, and I find that works fine. A lot of times, I'll be EQing separately for every word, where maybe one word, the singer goes off mic and it gets kind of dark, so I'll pull out 300, 400, I'll put in some shelving, and then it could be only for half of one word or for one word, and the next word, the person's right on access to the mic and it sounds fine. So it's great. I love Pro Tools because I can get rid of all of these artifacts and I can make every vocal sound perfect. I also love to adjust the level of every S and T separately. I've listened to a lot of the de-essers in digital domain, and I haven't found any one that allows me to set it and forget it. I pretty much don't bother with them. I basically just set all the levels manually, because in a vocal, if an S or a T is too loud, it kind of makes the vocal harsh. If it's sitting at just the right level, it sounds great. Because you always have to think of when you're using condenser mics like 47s or 251s, really they have a lot of highs, and sometimes they will exaggerate the sibilance. So it's great to have the vocal very clear, but it's great to also have the S's and T's in control. Now, in regards to, let's say you have a situation where you've got an element in the mix that's really harsh, and you really want to find out what's causing the problem. Let's say it's a vocal. And some singers will have a lot of this, I call it kind of an sound right in the center of their voice. And it's really only noticeable in certain words and certain sections when they're singing louder. So to find out where that is, a lot of times what I'll do is typically it's between 3K and 5 kilohertz. And so what I'll typically do is I'll listen to the vocal in the spot where I think it's harsh, and I may crank the EQ up, say 8 dB or 10 dB a boost, and then I'll sweep it back and forth, and I'll find the spot where it's the nastiest, where I really think the harshness is. And it could be, maybe it's like 3.2K or right around there, but sometimes it's up higher, maybe it's at the 5K. And so what I'll typically do is I'll turn to 0, and then I'll cut, and not super wide at first, and I'll see if I can get rid of the harshness without losing any clarity. And this EQ is probably only for a couple of words. It's not for the whole vocal. It's usually because most of the time the words that are harsh are just, there's a few spots, or maybe there's a section of a group of words that are harsh. So I'll cut the harshness out and I'll make it sound smooth. And I might end up cutting a little at 3K, I might cut a little at 5K, a little narrow band, until I can make the vocal sound, really fat and fun to listen to. The other thing I do is is a lot of times I will do, fairly major, EQ rides on some of the quiet stuff to get it super clear, because maybe the singer was just slightly off axis. And then when it gets into the chorus, they're right on the microphone. It's just getting it so it sounds consistent from beginning to end. And in regards to other things for EQ, most of the time when I'm recording, I do almost entirely analog EQ. And I do that, I find that it's much better for me to put the EQ on while I'm recording, assuming you have really good quality EQs to record with. If you don't have anything, you don't want to put bad EQ on something, because once you've EQ'd it improperly, it's very hard to get rid of it. But I do find that I'm still very fond of the original API 550A. I'm fond of the Avalon stereo parametric. I like George Massimo's first EQ, the ITI. That's one of my favorites. There's a lot of, and I like the Pultec EQ P183. I love the Lang PEQ2A. And those are the keys that those are my go-tos most of the time, the EQs that I use the most. So I hope that's been of some help. And I could go on endlessly about this, so I think maybe the best thing to do is to pick this up later. Bye. Also, if you have a chance, please subscribe to our new YouTube video channel. I'm going to answer a ton of questions. Thanks.